History and also the gap that exists is not equitable way of how First Nation, they don't have running water, and how you need to be involved and also having awareness. And for me, to be honest, and I didn't know the history of First Nation, and I find out about 10 years ago, and it's a shame. I was been living in Canada more than 10 years, and knowing that, and also not acknowledging as settler, not acknowledging and not knowing the hardships that they went through, and also the benefit that we are getting as a settler as well. And I want to acknowledge that as well. And it doesn't have to be read on the paper to acknowledge the land, but at the same time, knowing the history, that is a matter as well. The whole that as a settler, knowing where we come from, where we are heading, where we are sitting as in Regent Park. This was Indigenous land, of course. But yeah, I just want to say that. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I just want to say, pass it to Ines as well.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to be talking a little bit regarding how we got here to all this workshop. We, Regent Park Safety Network, we've been doing all this workshop through Toronto Housing, the safety network, that we apply for grant to do for the community in Regent Park, or to do workshops. So we receive funds from United Way. And as a TCAC, we merged with Mothers of Peace and the TV Learning Center and the city. So we've done a few workshops. I'm going to mention just the ones that we've done. Mental health, overdose prevention workshop, anxiety in youth adults, know your legal rights, financial literacy workshop, back to basics community engagement, and tonight is the Grieving the Unspoken journey. And there will be more workshops in the future that we're going to be doing it through the whole year. So I want to just thank you everybody for being here, and hopefully to see you again in the new year, 2021. This year has been a bumpy road, but we're still hanging in here, and I just want to say thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Ines. I just want to also acknowledge Faria, who is a part of Being Me. That's how I met Hina as well. And I'm going to call Faria to say a few words about Being Me, what they do as well.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Soraya. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm really appreciative to be part of this event and just tune in. So as Soraya mentioned, I am part of the Being Me, and Me stands for Muslima Empowered. It's a women's empowerment organization started by Muslim women. And we are really delighted to be here today. We've worked with Soraya for the Women of Regent Park and have joined forces together before. And we have combined in terms of hosting Being Me workshops for Soraya and the ladies interested. So, you know, we cover a lot of mental health and wellness topics. It could range from fitness, you know, fitness, health, nutrition. It can deal with parental issues. You know, you want to have a dialogue for parent-child dynamics. So there's a lot that we cover and a whole round of subjects around there. It's run through a campaign specifically called Coffee Therapy. And, you know, we'll address subject topic matters, trends, challenges, whatever the community is really going through and wants to talk about and hear about. So it was really nice to have gotten together with Soraya where she was looking for workshops that directly dealt with these types of things. And recently we had held a workshop with Being Me on its own in regards to grief therapy. And that's where we connected with Hina, our superstar, mashallah. And she's been part of Being Me for a while as a speaker. And Soraya had connected with me on wanting her to speak on this topic with you guys. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you want to learn more about Being Me, definitely reach out to me and I can help guide you with it. And our website is attendbm.com. We have all our postings there. So thanks, Soraya, for including me, and I really appreciate the highlight today.
Thank you, Faria. As a Muslim organization, Being Me, doing a lot of amazing stuff. In Regent Park, as you know, majority of our Muslim conservative community. So when I said to Ines, we're gonna have a grieving counseling, and Ines said, is she a Muslim? I said, yes, this is good, we want her, she said. So we are happy to have Hina as a guest speaker, because sometimes it matters where is the information coming from as well, especially for our community. And that speaks louder for the community members, and knowing that culturally sensitive, Ines realized that, and she was happy that to have Hina as a speaker tonight. Before I call Hina, Marcy is here. I'm happy to have her. And we saw her name and I was so excited to see her name, but I bumped to her in CRC. We were saying goodbye to Brother Faraz, and I asked her, you guys have, what do you have actually? And everything is in virtually, which is, so I want to call Marcy, our Toronto Centre representative, and maybe you could say a few words what they do over virtually, how can community members could access them as well. Marcy, can you hear us?
I can. Thank you so much, Soraya. It's good to see you, and it was great to see you earlier today. Thanks for all your work. And ladies, it's really, really good to be with you. I was saying to Soraya, I was in Ottawa last week. I was just sworn in a little while ago, and the way things are working, most of it is virtual. They can't have all of the members, all 388 members in Ottawa and in the house. So they put us into groups. So I am in a group that was able to go last week, and I'm not sure when I'll be back. But what we have done, as Soraya mentioned, is that we have set up our office, which is Bill's old office on Parliament Street. So it is up, it is running. We are operating it virtually because of COVID-19. And what that means is that if anybody is in any need of anything, or has any questions or cases, or needs help with anything whatsoever, you can call us, you can email us. There's an email being sent out to the community, likely as we speak. I just had a look at it this afternoon. It's going out to you so that you have the email address. I can put it in the chat as well, and the phone number, so that if you need to get in touch, you can. Thank you. Thanks so much. Hanan just put it in to the chat. So that is the email to reach us. Thank you. It's so good to see you.
I think it's also to put a face of her as well, Hina, if she could come, Hannah, if she could say a few words. And,
yes. I would love Hanan to say a couple of words. The two of us were the ones that were together through the by-election, hitting the streets and talking to you as we saw you in Regent Park. And I just want to thank you, because you got us here. You did. And now it's time to serve. Now it's time to work for you. And it is such a great honor. So we want you to know that we're here, and we're here to work for you. And that means connecting with us. The other thing I wanted to say before Hanan comes on and addresses you for a little bit is that we are looking for students, because we need to have Regent Park representation in our office. We had put a call out. We didn't get any resumes in, but we do have room for some students. Apart from the summer program, There are some opportunities, and we want our kids in Regent Park to be involved. Okay, so if there's anybody that you know of, maybe your own kids, that would like to be a part of what we're doing and serving the community through the constituency office, please be in touch, because we need you. Okay. Hanan, are you here? I saw you pop up.
There we go. Okay, hi everyone. Hello. So my name is Hanan. I work in Marcy's office. I'm with her both in Ottawa and in Toronto. A little background about me is I previously worked at Minister Hussein's office in York South-Weston. So I'm experienced in the realm of working at the federal level. You know, Regent Park, it's always been an amazing community. I've always admired it and all of the awesome programs and the community base it has. Some of the work that we've been doing with at the grassroots level with some of the kids is some of the people that that I've met and Marcy has met throughout the campaign. We're just helping them out one-on-one with applying for programs like the Black Entrepreneurship Funding. You know, we sent out the email for SLP, which is the Summer Leadership Program. So we try to get the word out as much as possible, you know, and talk to the kids who have great ideas and are doing great things in the community, but just don't know where to start. And I think at a grassroots level, that's something that Marcy and I both really value. So if you know any young people who, you know, have a great idea or just don't know where to start, a great place for them to start would be at our office. And that's really like a really big aspect that we do push in our office. So if you have any young people that you know that just feel like they're stuck or don't know where to start, please, you know, feel free to send us an email and we would love to help them out. So.
Thank you. We will, the Mother's Piece has a lot of teenagers and they will knock on, and you will see a lot of emails as well.
Yes, please.
And we could share your contacts, and we have a Facebook, and we could put it there as well. The Mother's Piece has, and you could follow us as well on Facebook.
Yes,
thank you.
Perfect.
I would love. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay. Now is Hina. Mark. So I'm gonna call Hina. Hina is, I saw her talk in Being Me, and then I said, I really need it for Regent Park. So that's how she's here. I just wanna share about Hina. Hina has over 17 years of experience as writer, public speaker, and community engagement expert. She has master in counseling, physiologic with focus of Islamic counseling, and registered physiotherapist in Ontario. She's specialized implementing positive parenting model, which is pretty much what we need, and we will call you for that. Parenting, and also the information where it's coming from is so matter for our community. I think we will be reaching out to you on New Year as well. So yeah, I see a lot of enriched stuff that she has done, implementing positive parenting model for healthy family and supporting individuals who are struggling through emotional behavior issues. As a counselor, her aim is to create warm and supportive environment where client and seeking and positive change grows by framing treatment planning with culturally sensitive, which is so important, and value and awareness. Individual who are very much, we will be reaching out to you, definitely. Hina.
Thank you so much, Soraya. I really appreciate the introduction. Good evening and hello to everybody out there. This is such a wonderful opportunity for me to connect with a community that I usually don't get a chance to speak to. I am not unfamiliar with Regent Park. I have been there several times. So sending you guys a really warm hello. I am all the way West End in Milton, but this is so heartwarming to see platforms like Zoom that have connected communities from all over, not just our own neighborhoods and our own areas and our own in our own province, but also globally. So thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to come in tonight and to share some of my experiences with grief and loss. I just wanted to make a quick correction for anybody else who was listening. The designation is psychotherapist.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, because I was like, if anybody's sitting there thinking, why is a physiotherapist telling me about grief and loss? I just wanted to clarify that my designation is I'm a registered psychotherapist here in Ontario, and the bulk of my work has to do with helping individuals and families through all kinds of life experiences, and of course, grief and loss being definitely one of them.
Yeah, I was so excited because we've been going through a lot of if you know, for I could say more than a decade, Regent Park, the loss of the young people in the community. And the mother's piece started about a couple of years ago. I had a desire to help moms, and I've been seeing them grieving, but I didn't know how to. But I really want to help them, and sometimes I don't know how to go about the anxiety, the grief, what they're going through. I remember last year or the year before that, we lost a young person. It was in daylight.
Oh.
He was close to my son, the age, and I was freaked out. And there was more moms who came to support her who lost their son. And I remember trying to support the moms who were also lost their son in the past. And they came, and I don't know even what I said, trying to comfort them. And then after I did, and I know what the hell I did, like whatever that I said, it wasn't appropriate. But I was trying to step in and to make her comfortable, and it was the way she came. It was very intense. It was on middle of the road, and I was, after I went home and I said, what did I do? Like I was. Anyway, so
no, this is
when
a
I
good way.
saw
This is such a wonderful way for all of us to be able to share whether there are experiences, whether you've lost someone or you know somebody who's lost someone. I think that there are certain things that are across humanity. So it doesn't matter what culture you're from, what religion you're from, what you practice, what you believe. None of that matters, because there's certain things in our lives that are human concerns, and grief is definitely one of those experiences that crosses all barriers across everything. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are, how educated or uneducated, where you live, how many family members you belong to. None of these things really are criteria, because grief and loss is such a united force where each of us, every single one of us, feels the intensity of loss in our own respective different ways. But it doesn't take away from the fact, like nothing at all takes away from the fact that this is something important that we all share with one another. So I mean, this is so neat for our community as well, and very much, I'm sure, appreciated by people who are either going through the experience of loss or may know of somebody going through the experience of loss.
Yeah, what is a relationship between loss and grief? Because the mom that I was telling you about, her son was lost, and we were trying to find out what happened. And the other mom who came on the middle of the road, and I'm trying to comfort her. Her son passed a few years. Like I was trying to came and to intervene and to stop her. I don't know what I did even. And looking at when I saw your talk, and then I said, okay, I need her here right now, kind of. So what is the relationship between loss and grief?
So just as a starting point, they're actually very closely related to one another, but loss is the actual act of losing something or someone in your life. And grief is the emotional expression or the emotion that you're going to feel after the loss. One of the things important to clarify is that loss is not limited to the death of somebody. Obviously, that is something that we're going to be talking about a lot or extensively today, but it's not just limited to the death of somebody. Loss can have a lot to do with losing your home, losing financial stability. It can be death. It can be divorce. Loss has a lot of depth to it. And regardless of what type of loss somebody is going through, they will have an emotional reaction or an emotional expression to their loss, which is what we classify as the grief.
Thank you. Start clicking right now. Can you explain or the 5 stages of grief that you could call, and if there is a set order stage that the person going through.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I know that everyone here is probably familiar with the 5 stages of grief, and what people are usually, you know, what they say is that this is the what happens when you go through a loss, that these are the things that would happen during your grief. No matter how researched grief and loss are, no matter how many papers are written and how many people are trying to understand what loss and grief looks like, I want everybody here today, every single one of you here who's logged in tonight, to know that there is no set format for grief or loss. There is no format that your grieving has to follow. There is no timeline. Everyone grieves very differently. It's a very subjective experience based on so many other factors. So don't ever feel that you or somebody that you know who's going through a loss, don't ever feel that there is a certain checklist that they're going to check off, and magically at the end of this checklist, they're going to be a renewed person. Yes, there is a lot of truth to the 5 stages of grief. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, the first stage is denial, where when you hear something, you are having a hard time accepting it. And then you get into this phase of anger, where your emotional outburst comes out very strongly. And then the third stage, in the 5 stages, the third stage is bargaining, where you're trying to say, okay, well, if this happens, then I can do this. And you're trying your best to overcome the idea of the loss. And then eventually, once you've understood that the loss has happened, you go into a depression stage. And finally, after you've completed that depression, or you've gone through that depression, you go into the phase of acceptance of your grief. I just only highlighted the 5 stages of grief because that is clinically, sometimes they say that these are the stages that people will follow. But please understand, this is not a format that is a formula. It's not. You could be in multiple phases at multiple times. You could go back to a phase. You could go forward to a phase. Everybody's grief journey is so different. And for a lot of people, it just comes in big waves. Some days are going to be easier, some days are going to be harder, but there's really no end, or you can't really mark that this is the beginning of my grief and this is the end of my grief. That is not the nature of grieving. And if you were to ask these mothers who unfortunately lost their sons, may they get peace in their hearts for those for the loss. If you ask anybody who's been through a loss, they'll tell you there is no end. I don't have a day that I'm done grieving and, oh, okay, I'm done now, I'm absolutely okay. It's something that you learn to live with. And that process of grief that's eternal. Recently, I lost my mom about a year ago. And I think that really shaped and formulated my own role as a therapist, because unless you've actually gone through something, it's very hard to acknowledge and understand how it really feels and what it's actually like in reality. So once I went through the experience, now I have a completely different perception of it. And I always say to people, you're never done. And it's okay. It's okay not to be done, because later on today, I'm going to talk to you and share with you how important it is to put purpose to your grief and hopefully get yourself into a better, more healed position. But just to understand that everybody's grief experience is so vastly different. And for us as people to just be open and accepting to the stages of grief, whatever they may look like for you or for anybody else, and how compassion is probably the one overarching word that needs to be repeated over and over and over again. Not just compassion to the person, other people that are grieving in our communities, but compassion to ourselves as well.
Thank you. It's very kind of complicated, especially when you don't know how the grief works as a human being. Yes, it doesn't matter who we are, but as when we go through, unless you go through yourself, it's hard sometimes. The degree, let's say my dad passed away, but my dad, I left long time ago. My grieving wasn't like sudden. I know he was sick and we were waiting, he's gonna pass. I was expecting. Still, it was like it's a loss, but at the same time, it was a process. But something like Regent Park, when we lose a young person, and from the gunshot, and all of the sudden he was. I saw it yesterday. Like I saw him passing. You say, and that's what what it plays on your head. So it just having that education piece, that it does make huge difference. And when people are going through, like you hear in culturally, and you say, oh, the time will heal. That's huge in the community as well. And she will forget it after whatever. And I see that we have moms in the community. I do connect with them, and sometimes they don't answer the phone. And I do 100% understand, because I've been with them for a long time, and they go through a lot of up and down emotion. And I need to have, like, and I say, I need to have compassion. I need to have understanding. Yes, it doesn't mean they ignore me when they don't answer the phone. So all of that, we need to be mindful. And I said to myself, I was talking to myself actually. And when I saw your talk, and then I said, and you hear in the community, time will heal. What do you say about that?
So there is a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to the fact that time is a good healing factor for anything. I'm going to give you an example of a physical wound. So let's say, for example, you get injured or you hurt a part of your body. Over time, that injury, that physical injury will heal. Let's say you burnt your hand over the stove, or you were cooking or something, or you cut a finger. So over time, that physical wound will heal, but there will be residual pain, or there'll be a residual mark, or there will be something that will stay. So yes, over time, the beauty of time is that it does provide us a place of stillness, of reflection, of being able to understand or maybe even overcome certain parts of that grief. But does that mean that time, as I mentioned earlier, does it mean that time is going to heal and erase the experience that you went through? Probably not. And I know that you mentioned earlier this very beautiful thing that different people have experienced grief in different ways. There are some of us, again, this is such a sensitive topic. So I'm very cautious when I talk about it, because there could be people out there who are listening that might get triggered by the word, something that we're saying. So I just want to be very respectful to anyone out there who's experienced a loss. I know of families where, an elderly parent is extremely unwell, and they ask people and they say, just pray that it's easy for them to pass on, or just that, it's easy for their pain or their suffering to end. And when we hear something like that, yes, it hurts our heart to think about the loss, but it's a loss that we are open to. The idea of losing that person, we're open to that because we can physically see their suffering through their illness or through their challenges and difficulty. Whereas in other circumstances, you have absolutely healthy, young, vibrant youth who are robbed of their life instantaneously because of a senseless act of somebody, a senseless violent act of somebody. And then how do you reconcile the differences? How do you reconcile that kind of loss within yourself? Which is why, as I said, the one overarching word that I'm going to repeat over and over again is going to be compassion. Because whether you've lost somebody through an illness that has been a prolonged experience, or you lost somebody very suddenly and unexpectedly, it doesn't make anybody's grief more or less. It is a very individual process. It is a very individual experience. Both parents of that same child who was unfortunately lost through a violent act of gunfire, both of those parents are going to grieve differently. Is it fair to say that dad's grief is better than mom's grief, or mom's grieving better than dad? No, that's unfair. It's unfair to say whose grief is more or less, because we're not competing in that. We're not competing. It's not a contest in grief. Grief is a private, it's a personal experience. And the best we can do is learn to not only respect another person's process of grief, but also to be respectful and understanding that whatever your process may be, whatever your loss may have looked like, you're going to get the same love and compassion irrespective whether I think your loss is big or not, because it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what that person is experiencing and feeling, and that should be the general narrative. I hear from community members that who go to a funeral, or who may go to for bereavement to somebody, and they say, oh, wait till I tell you what happened to so-and-so's child, or wait till I tell you what happened to so-and-so's parent. And that's not a healthy way to approach somebody's grief, because you're almost disrespecting their loss experience. Don't undermine a person's loss and don't make them feel as though their loss is not bigger or it's not good enough or it's not worthy enough to be grieved. But also, sorry, I know I took the long-winded road there, but when you're asking about the, time healing, yes, you will absolutely. Time will ease the discomfort in your heart. It will make it a little bit easier, a little bit better. But again, you might have experiences much later in the timeline where it hits you in your heart again. So it could fluctuate very much, that you go through a phase where things are better and you're feeling you're doing better, but then you might have a day where you're completely, it's like the grief is very fresh and very raw all over again. So just to understand that it's very dynamic, and it's grief can be very dynamic as well.
Thank you. I think you touched some of them, the things that I was about to ask also. What is effective tool, strategic, or implements that one healing journey? You already touched it, but let's say one of the, like what I see in the community as well, and when the shooting happened, or when we suicide or overdose that we've been seeing right now spike in the community, a trigger for the moms who lost their son, daughter, so it triggers back, and also those individual, they didn't get support that they need, and because of the culturally sensitive, and a lot of the time that I've been hearing also, they don't understand us. They don't acknowledge they are. Ines, can you mute it? Mute your, yeah, thank you. What they go through as well. I lost my thought right now.
The mic mute kind of threw it off, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. What can we do? The journey that like, let's say someone, like we lost the moms who lost their son. I would say it was the typical before. Right now there is overdose, there is suicide, all of the stuff that hearing just makes me overwhelmed as well.
Absolutely.
And there
you're
is
right, Soraya. For sure, you're right. Everybody's, as I mentioned, everybody's grief journey is very, very different to one another. But there's generally, you're going to notice that there's two types of categories that an individual's grief experience will fall under. Sometimes people grieve very internally, and they're only thinking about themselves, my loss, my grief, my experience, and it's such an internal process that's basically crushing them on the inside. For that type of person, I would recommend look outside. Look externally, look at the other people, maybe other family members who've lost in your own, other members of your own family, your husband, your siblings, your own children. Who are the other people who have lost that same person or is going through the same loss as you are, and try to learn again to be compassionate to those people around you, and to appreciate the fact that they're grieving as well, rather than focusing only inwardly on yourself. Now, then another type of grieving process is when you're very externally focused. So you're not looking at yourself, you're not taking care of your own grief, or you're not acknowledging or being compassionate to yourself, and you're very focused externally. For people who are in that headspace, who are just, let me take care of everybody else, take a minute, take a pause. If you've gone through a loss, it's okay for you to take care of yourself. It's okay for you to cry and be upset. It's even okay for you to reach out for help in the community, to see which resources you can reach out to. So just try to be able to first categorize your own grief. Is this a very internal grief process? Am I so focused on myself that I've put blinders on? I don't see that there are other people around me who have gone through the same loss, and how can I help connect with them? Because you're going to notice something very beautiful. When you share that grief with other people, let's say, for example, a young adult has passed away and the mom is grieving. When you realize that your other children are also grieving, or your husband is also grieving, it helps ease that pain and that suffering for you when you have somebody to share it with, because it's not just inside you and it's not just alone your experience. But if you're so focused on everybody else around, and you're so focused on taking care of other people, now it's time to make that switch. because you have to honor yourself too. And if you continue to ignore your own grieving process, and if you completely ignore the way that you felt or what you're going through, then it's going to eventually catch up. So you want to have a good, healthy balance of both the internal and the external process of grief. A thing that I think is very important that has usually helped a lot of people that I have worked with in the process of grief, and it's helped me incredibly after I lost my mom, is to put action towards your grief. Don't just let that emotion sit inside you stagnant and just build and almost crush you on the inside. When you suffer a loss, and I'm not saying to do this the same day or the day after, when you're ready and when you're able to put some action into that grief experience or into that emotional experience of yours, and you can do that by so many different ways. The first and the most important way, connect with the people that the person who you lost, whoever they loved, connect with those people. So their friends, their family members, anybody that they were cared about, start connecting with those people so that you can honor their memory and legacy. There are other things like that you can do, like donating on their behalf, maybe, making intention and saying that I'm going to go and I'm going to feed 20 people, I'm going to buy food for 20 people today, and I'm going to do it for the sake of this person because I love this person and this person's so important to me, and I really want them to I want the goodness of them to live on. If you lost somebody who a child of yours, you can go back to their school and donate books into the library for that school. You can always pray for the deceased. You can, you can sit, you can write letters. You can always put action towards that grief rather than letting it fester within yourself. Open it up. Allow yourself to express that grief in a healthy way so that it has purpose behind it too. And it's not just a stuck space that you're living in for as long as you're stuck into it.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And there's a lot of question on the audience that want to ask. Ines is one of them, and she's really want to ask you. I just want to finish what I have. Then we will open it up for question and answer as well. Yeah. So the reason why is I've been saying that the moms who lost their son, it's the loss when we have, it's the ripple effect of the communities. We all impacted by that. It triggered because we didn't get enough support. It just triggers the time that we didn't heal, and nobody's taking a time to process what we just happened. We just acting like we are strong or whatever it is that we could call ourselves, and we make it normal to make it. Then the next day we could just do not normal stuff. It piled up over the years. And what I see also, a couple of months ago, I think it's before COVID, there was a place that some organization that invite us, myself and one of the mom who lost their son. And in the room, there was everybody who was lost their son from gun violence. One of the moms, she has two sons. She lost two of them from gun violence. The moms who were with me and she said, this is the first time I was grateful that where I am, the place where I am, she said to me. And then I was surprised. Like usually I'm like trying to comfort her and saying whatever that necessary to comfort her. But when after she witnessed the moms, that she has two sons, she lost both of them from the gun violence, and she said, this is the first time that I was grateful, she mentioned. But it doesn't mean that that it will take away her grieving, but gratitude that makes you a little bit peaceful in your heart as well. Another thing that I want to ask you, is there a time that you need extra help, that you could ask grief therapy, and how do you navigate that?
Okay, so now grief counseling and grief therapy is it has a lot of layers to it. So let's just go back to the beginning. Right at the very start, when you first go through the loss experience, your body, your mind, your emotions are going to go through very many different processes. And that's where I said in the beginning that there's no set guideline as to what to expect and how you're going to be able to manage and handle and navigate that. But given a sense of time, and I'm very cautious when I say this, because definitely losing your child through gun violence is very, very tragic. So there's a little bit more depth to it. But when you've experienced a loss, if you're unable to get back to your regular life that you used to have, you find that you can't go back to work. It's causing you, you're unable to pay your bills because of that. You're unable to go to school. You're unable to care for your children. You're unable to socialize, see people. And a lot of times there are people who just, they experience a loss and they're so depressed that they stay in bed because they just can't imagine getting out of bed. So a lot of these are very good markers to be able to see, okay, I think I might need additional help. And that process can be not just for yourself internally to say, okay, well, I'm having a hard time getting back to even the basics, like, getting up out of bed, changing my clothes, preparing meals, eating, even the basics of life. The more severe your experience post loss is, the more severe your grief experience is, the sooner it might be helpful to get some intervention. But even if you can't tell, maybe the people around you can tell. So people who are on this Zoom call here today, maybe somebody around you is even unable to identify that they might need that extra help, but you can see that they're not able to return to the back to the same quality of life that they had, getting back to, and when I say that, I mean the very, very basics, going to work, eating meals, showering, changing. If you're not seeing that person making regular progress, by the end of a week, you're not seeing that person sort of getting rehabilitated back into life, then it might be important to have somebody intervene. On the contrary, if you have somebody who's going through long-term depression and they're really suffering and they're really struggling, then of course it's important to reach out for help. Anytime you see a deterioration in the quality of that person's life from what it used to be, then it's necessary to say it might help a little to see what resources I can tap into. Every community is, we're so blessed to be here in Canada. Every single community offers so much help and so much support. I know that there are lots of organizations that provide grief counseling. There's a lot of hospitals that, when you lose your child or if you go through an experience that's been violent or tragic, they'll offer you a lot of support therapy for for the people who are left behind. So look into your community resources that are available first and foremost. Just see what kind of grief counseling is available. You can look into your spiritual centers as well for anybody who follows a particular faith-based intervention. Those are really beautiful. You can always turn to your religious leaders or your spiritual guides to help you and give you some direction during time of severe loss. And you've always got your option to look up therapists. There are a lot of hotlines that you can call, people that you can connect with just over the phone. Nowadays, due to COVID, we've got access to therapists anywhere across the world. You don't have to necessarily drive or go to see a therapist. You can see somebody, face to face or screen to screen, I guess that's the best way to describe it, but you're able to connect with people. So you've got an opportunity that if you feel the need that I'm not done grieving and I still need more help, then connect. And also, sorry, I didn't mention this, but support groups are so critical and crucial. And they don't need to be organized support groups. Just somebody, Soraya, someone just like you in the community can get some moms together and you can meet once a month, and you don't have to talk about death or loss or tragedy. You can just connect with each other and you can just ask how everyone is doing and check in with them to make sure that as a community you're looking after each other as well.
Thank you. That's very important also to mention that the way we were dealing our grief was, I remember Ines and I a couple of years ago, we came in the center, we just cried like that was like relief that felt. And we didn't have even a word how to describe, but it felt so good. And having us coming, just getting together and cry. And the reason that also we start the mother species because of that, the support that we need each other.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah. Yeah,
That's beautiful, because nobody is going to understand and empathize the way that you are as a community, that all of you are able to empathize with one another. And when you open your heart and your arms to a woman who's lost a child, you know, from your organization or from your community, when you open those doors and you open your hearts and you open your arms and say, you know, come here and let us take care of you, there's nothing that can equate that loss, right? Like none of us, even as a therapist, there's nothing I can say to a person that's going to help them overcome the loss. But we can make that journey more peaceful. We can make that journey more respectful, and we can help our, you know, community members, brothers and sisters, and people who are suffering, just, you know, may have suffered before us or are suffering now. We can all help them share with our own narrative and say that we're in this together. And that compassion, that power that we build in our communities is so incredibly supportive and helpful. I forgot to mention, Soraya, when you were asking about resources or reaching out for help, there's a lot of great information available online as well. If you go to some credible sources, there's a lot of really wonderful information available where it can actually be the start of your journey, because when you are in a place where you're feeling stuck and you're not able to understand, well, am I still stuck in grief? Do I need therapy? Do I need help? There's a lot that you can look at and resources online that can help answer those questions. Excuse me.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful. And also acknowledging the country where we come from as immigrants. There is no word as a grieving, like there is no such thing as grief counseling or grief therapy as well. And having to think about it and having to formalize it and like having it dedicated space, you go to that person. And that also, there is, we need to normalize that, I would say. Because you don't know we don't know how to take care of us. And the first time when we get together in the center, we just felt we need to cry, and we let it go. And then I was going to a crisis network table, and we go there and we react and we go funeral, and that's it. Yeah. And then I said, this is not normal, and we need to have healing tables. Whatever that is, we just gonna get together. That's how we start the mother space, and we had from there on, we have ongoing session. We had the moms from the community who are co-chair and chair manage it in a way that this is the community driven. This is for community. That's how it was continue for everybody that we
that's
said.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I think that that's such an essential thing to say as well, because not everyone has that opportunity to be able to connect online or, you know, reach out to resources like therapists or even, you know, affordability of ongoing continued counseling. So the necessity of having these healing tables that you're talking about and having community centers that allow women to reach out for support, or allow families or children or anybody for that matter, you know, those support groups that come within our communities, they're so essential and important for all of us. Because if you are unable to reach out to the right, correct resources, if you don't have the right, you know, if you're not placed correctly, or if you don't have the right ability to find that counselor or find the right therapist, you know that your community is here to support you. And grief and loss, as I mentioned before, is such a unifying experience. It transcends absolutely every life experience, because all of us share the grief and the loss together. So that's beautiful what you're doing in your community, in your community centers. That's a very beautiful thing, to open those doors and have that availability to share that loss experience with others, because more profound than, you know, reading an article online or watching a video on YouTube or going to a grief counselor or calling a grief hotline, more important than any of those are the resources that we've built in our own communities that can not only understand but empathize in a way that really I don't think anybody else can. And that human to human experience makes it really, it adds that warmth to it as well.
So just want to tell you a little bit about Regent Park. We are not tech person. We rather meet in face to face. We've been forced to be on Zoom. But there is a lot of people also who are not Zoom yet. Hopefully by next year, we will onboard them and see how we could have inclusive community on over virtually as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and another thing that I want to mention also, and if you like, I want to ask you first, if you are not dealt with your grieving, how will show up as well, and what does that looks like?
Okay, so as I mentioned, grief is not a process that has a beginning or an end to it. So part of your grief is going to be, it's going to come back up in cycles or waves over and over again. I'm going to go back to my own example. So I lost my mom about a year ago, and it was a very painful experience because she passed away very suddenly, very unexpected. There was no illness, no association like that. You know, I spoke to her one day, the next day she's gone. And the shock and the jolt of it was so strong for me that initially the way that I processed it was very, very different. And then I felt that I did really well with my grief, except, and I'm going to share this story with you because I feel like a lot of people can relate to this. I went home for the funeral. I really supported my brother and my sisters, and I felt like I was doing a really good job of being the kind of sibling that they needed at that time. But when I came back to Canada, and mind you, my mom passed away in Pakistan, so I went to see my family. And when I came back to Canada, in my head, I thought, oh, great, you know, I'm doing so well with my grief that I feel like I've gone through this incredible loss of losing a parent, and I've still managed to get back on my feet. And one day I was at the grocery store, and the avocados were on sale, okay? And they were, I remember, like $1.88 for a bag. And I got really excited, and I picked up the avocados, and all of a sudden I just started crying. I couldn't stop. I was in the middle of the grocery store and I had tears down my face. I didn't know how to control my tears. I didn't know how to control my emotions. And I said to myself, I'm like, okay, what's happening here? And then when I went home and I sat with it for a bit, I realized that my, anytime something would go on a really good sale, I would always share it with my mom, and she would get very excited, and she would be like, oh, make sure you use them. Don't let them go bad. So that experience of the avocados being on sale just hit my heart so strongly all of a sudden out of the blue. So it's not unnatural to have moments like that where, you know, there is something that triggers your memory of that person. It's not uncommon to have their birthday come by, or a big special holiday, whether it's Christmas or Eid or anything that you celebrate. It's not uncommon to go through a momentary experience that's going to push your grief through the roof. And that's okay as well. But here's the thing. Are you able to get back to the regular quality of life that you were living? The basics: showering, changing, getting up, working, learning to be happy again, learning to have relationships with people around you and share space and time with them as well, as long as you're not stuck. So what happens if we don't do the work? And what happens if you don't overcome your grief? And what happens if you don't overcome your loss? Number one, the most important thing is that the suffering will continue. And I can assure you that if your loved one was here and they saw you suffering, they would not like it. This is not, that is not what they would have wanted for you. For those of you who lost children through tragedy, for those of you who've lost parents, for those of you who've lost spouses or siblings, whoever, wherever your loss has been, if your loved one could see you, they wouldn't want your suffering to continue. And they wouldn't want to see you in the state that you are in if you are stuck, if you are unable to move forward. So the suffering needs to stop at some point. And another thing that you're going to notice if you're not going to do the work and get back on your feet is your quality of your life is going to start declining. So you're going to notice that your other relationships are going to suffer. You're going to notice that your own ability to do work, or ability, the energy that you had, or the motivation that you had, or the drive that you had to even be able to go out and, pick up dinner, or to buy food, or, go out and do anything in life, the abilities are going to change. And that's going to create ongoing challenges. So if in your grief you are unable to work, or if in your grief you are unable to seek out support, that's just going to increase your challenges. It's not going to make anything better. So you're going to end up in a situation that's harder and maybe worse than what you had started off with. And the worst of them all is that you're going to fall into depression. Depression is something that a lot of parents may go through after the loss of a child. It's something that even adults go through after losing a loved one. The loss of an adult. But the underlying thing here is that if you're in a depression, now everything is impacted. Not only just yourself, but the people around you are now being negatively impacted by your inability to cope, or inability to get help for the grief. So get help. If you're suffering and you're struggling, and it's been a while, and you feel like, I mean, other people are sort of moving on, and other family members are doing better than I am, why am I still stuck? And if these are the questions that you're asking yourself, then it's really important for you to find a source in the community and anywhere, get help, because it's not okay for you to live like this. I can understand and empathize that the loss is severe, but remind yourself of that one thing: your loved one who you lost, if they could see you today, is this what they would want? Would they want to see you suffering? And I'm hoping that the answer is no, because nobody should be suffering and nobody would want another to suffer. So get the help that you need, because that's what's going to help you give back to your community in a healthier, positive way, whether it's your own family members or anybody extended within, within the area that you live in. People need you still. You are here for a reason. You are here because you're valuable right now, and your presence is valuable and you're needed. So make sure that that value is respectfully honored by you, so that you can go out and take care of the other people around you.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And before I pass to Ines, how can you be there for someone who is grieving? What is do and don't that we could help that have that relationship healthy as well, I could say, because as the mother speaks, all of us, the groups are like, we step in to help when there is a loss in the car accident, or if there is overdose or whatever that is, we step in and check among ourselves who is available right now to go to this person. Mm-hmm. We need to check in, and when you go there, sometimes maybe you don't know what you are saying. What is the things that you need to mindful of stuff? Yeah. Thank you.
I think that, when you ask, like, what are the do's and the don'ts of talking to somebody who's going through grief, attending workshops like this is really helpful, because it actually helps you understand without being in that situation, in that crisis situation. It gives you an opportunity to talk about it, and it gives you an opportunity to say, what am I supposed to say, or what's the right thing, what's the wrong thing. There's no specific list of do's and don'ts that I'm going to hand out, but what I am going to say to you is my own husband really struggled with this, and he always said to me that, if somebody's family member passed away, I'm afraid I might say the wrong thing, so I don't get in touch with them at all. And I feel like that's the safer, more respectful thing. And I'm going to tell you something very valuable here. When I lost mom, I still remember every single person that called. I don't remember what they said. I can't tell you what they said to me. I can't tell you how they reacted or what their words were, but I remember that they reached out to me. And you don't have to come up with a fancy script of a long-winded message. Chances are, if the experience of the loss is very, very fresh and very new, that person may or may not even remember what you said, but they will definitely remember that you came in to support. So whatever you're comfortable with, don't be afraid of sharing in somebody's grief and loss. If you want, you can make it more personal. And if you have gone through a loss, you've got the experience, you can always remember, what did I hear that I found helpful? What did somebody say to me that I found comfort and peace in? And you can share that. But just simply by showing your support, simply by being there, physically being present for a person, COVID permitting, because I know that we're in a very unique, different circumstance right now. We're not able to go and physically comfort people that have gone through a loss, but, sending a text message, a phone call, sending a card, sending a hot meal, sending whatever you may want, a grocery voucher or something, that you are showing them that I am here for you. I love you. I care about you. I honor the loss that you've gone through. And I want you to know that you're not alone in this. These are very easy, very simple ways to connect with somebody who's gone through something very, very tragic in their life. The only don't that I'm going to really emphasize and put out there, and I think I mentioned it, I touched on it briefly earlier. One of the things that you shouldn't do is compare their grief to somebody else's, or compare their grief to your own grief, because that's a bit disrespectful. Remember what I said, that, whether you lost somebody tragically, or whether you lost somebody through illness or over time or age or anything, whatever the loss may look like, it's still hurtful and it's still challenging for the person going through it. So avoid making it about yourself and avoid making it about other people, and really just focusing that energy and that attention on the person that is going through the grief, and letting them know that you're there to support. A quick and an easy way to show that support is just even one sentence. If you can say, I'm sorry for your loss, I care about you, I'm here for you if there's anything you need, and just asking that the family, how can I help you right now? You know, what would be helpful right now, because I really want to show my support, and allowing them to let you know whatever they need. It's not, you know, when somebody, those of you who are on the call today who've gone through a loss, you can probably empathize. There's very little that other people can probably do for you, because that loss is your own personal journey that you're going to have to go through. But just to hear that support, and just to know that there are people around you that care about you, and that, you know, they're there for you, that in itself is such an empowering experience. So don't rob other people of it. You know, if you have somebody around you who's gone through a loss, show support in whichever way that you can, whatever means that you have, show your support, because that's what's going to be remembered the most. Don't hide behind your own fears or your own inhibitions. I told my husband, I said, listen, if it's hard for you, just try and imagine how hard it is for the person who's actually gone through the loss. And there's very little that you can say at that point that is going to be harmful. Just be respectful, be kind, show that compassion, and tell that person that you're there and you care about them, and, you know, you wish that there was something you could do to help. But if you're looking for ideas, meals are always beautiful. I live in a very wonderful community here in Milton, and one of the things that families do for each other when they've gone through a loss is that somebody will take charge and they will organize a meal train, and they'll make sure that the family's meals are looked after, you know, whether they're reaching out to a community resource or providing a meal themselves, but just making sure that for at least for a little while they're dealing with their emotions, that they don't have to worry about how they're going to feed their family. So that's one very, very beautiful universal way to make sure that you're taking care of the people around you. And then after that, just a lot of support. Be compassionate, be a good listener, and allow that person to honor their healing journey, whatever that may look like.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Like I mentioned to you, I was happy that when I saw you, like, we must have her here. But when I post your picture, the more than me was Ines was happy that you are coming. She said she's a Muslim. Yes, this is good, she said. Okay, so Ines, you could open your mic and videos. Please go ahead. Hina, go ahead.
Thank you, Hina. My thing is, for me, for my grieving, it's been 10 years since my ex-husband passed away, and I never got to say bye. And my brother, when he passed away, I never got to say goodbye. So for me, oh God.
Okay, take a minute. It's okay.
It still hurts. I tried, but it still hurts.
You know, Ines, it's okay. It's okay for it to still hurt. These losses are great. They're big, big, big losses. They're not small. They're not, you can't just undermine your own self. You have to honor that loss within yourself. And as you mentioned, you know, one of the things that you said is, I never got a chance to say goodbye. That can be painful, because it may be something that's valuable and important to you. So I'm going to make a suggestion. Write your loved one a letter. Write your brother, your husband a letter, and put closure to that. You know, you can keep that letter. You can, you know, you can send it off somewhere if you like. Some people like to put it in a lake, or some people like to, you know, whatever you may want to do with it, but get a chance to say your goodbye. And if you feel like, you know, you're not the writing type, you can even, you know, just close your eyes and take a moment to meditate and just imagine that person's there and say your goodbyes. Get some closure, because I can even through a screen, I can hear your pain and I can feel the pain that you're going through. It's not an easy experience by far. It's definitely not easy to suffer the loss, but if you're still holding on to a part of that loss where you think that, you know, I didn't get a chance to, oh, look at that. Who's that behind you?
My grandson.
Your grandson?
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. So, look at that beautiful life that you get to honor, right? You get to be grateful for having your grandson in your life. I'm not gonna make it small for you or say that, you know, I'm not gonna lessen that pain of the loss for you. But what I will say is take this emotional energy that you have and honor the losses in your life. Now put action towards it. Starting today, choose something that you can do to honor the lives of the people that you've lost. Whether it's a small commitment, you know, I've one of the best ways that you can honor the loved ones is to say that every single day, I'm going to say hello to a stranger, just every day, whatever I can do. I'm going to say hello. I'm going to write cards, or I'm going to, you know, I'm going to reach out to people who may not have somebody in their lives to say hello to or to say goodbye to. So find a way to connect that emotional energy to an action item, which is going to help you grieve in a healthier way. And most importantly, look at that beautiful face.
And you know, that's his grandson.
That's beautiful.
So I see a lot of him and my grandson.
So give him a lot of love. Give him a lot of love, and you know, show that love there. And as I said, what I want you to remember is put action towards the grief, which means that now take that pain and do something with it. You can even sit down, you know, if you want, you can ever sit down with a therapist and just, you know, go through a closure exercise where you just close your eyes and you say what you want to say. And in your heart, you know that that message went to wherever it needed to go to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ines, for sharing that. Bibi, do you want to go next? Maybe you could open your video. Bibi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
There you are.
Okay. Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. I love what you're wearing.
Yeah, today, this is my first time joins the group. It's amazing.
Welcome. See how the community, the world has become a global community.
Yeah.
We're all learning here. I'm still quite new to all of this as well.
Yeah, I think I'm doing well with my grief. I lost my mom last year, and my dad. My dad 10 years, and I have one of my brother and one of my sister. And I lost a little baby too. That's like 5 people. I think I'm doing pretty good with that deep painful, that like it's a great loss for me.
You're right.
So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I console myself. I comfort myself. Yeah.
What are the things, Bibi? What are the kinds of things that you've done that you found helpful in the past year?
I just pray and I just understand the Quran. What we're expecting, everyone expecting. That's like I accept what Allah wrote, what Allah said to us. I have to. Yeah.
Faith can be a very big healing factor for a lot of people.
No matter how big, no matter how big it is, I continue deal with it in a way that every day I have to find some happiness in it, whether it is big or small. I try to find happiness, but only when I dream them, when I dream at them, I saw them in my dream. That day I will feel so pain, so hard.
And that's okay. That's okay to have those, as I mentioned, you know, it's okay to grieve in different waves where obviously, you know, you see a loved one that's passed away.
But we cannot erase this grief. We cannot erase it.
You said it. That's
we just
true.
Keep going.
There's no end to the grief. We don't end it. We learn to manage it. We learn to live with it, and we learn to honor the legacy of the people that have left us, because they live on through you. their existence continues, the circle of life and how we've given life to something and by taking care. And there's this very beautiful concept of in Islam, of the faith that I think Bibi and I follow. One of the things that there's a concept in our faith that we call sadaqah jariyah, which means that good deeds or goodness that lives on forever. And even though our loved ones might have passed away or have left us in this world, everything that good that comes from you goes back to them in some shape or form. So just to understand that, a lot of the times when you need to do something about your loss, the best thing to do is to serve other people and to take care of other people through whatever means, whether you're giving them your time, your energy, your effort by cooking for them or helping them in any which way, taking care of another person or doing something good for another person. That's a beautiful way to honor that legacy.
I keep that connection with many. I have lots of friends. They give me lots of support. Sometimes they don't know. I have to tell them. Sometimes they don't know. They tell me, how you maintain your body, how you maintain. I say, if I tell you my problem, my difficulty, you faint. You fail. But Allah gave me courage. I am dealing with that every day. I used to it, but sometimes it hit me very hard. I don't want to wake up from my bed. I just feel very low.
So can I give you a quick tip for the days that you're feeling very low and you're not feeling able to get out of your bed? I'm going to give you a quick tip. Okay. So let's say you're in bed and you're feeling your grief is very heavy that day on you and you're not able to even get up out of bed. I just want you to hold your hand up like this. So you're looking at your hand. Okay. And I want you to count 5 things that you're grateful for. Okay. And if you want to really connect it to your loss, you can say, you mentioned that you lost your parents, right? So you can list something that your dad taught you, what you're grateful for, something that your mom said or your mom taught you, all of your loved ones. You can count down on your fingers, but just 5 things and remind yourself, what am I grateful for? And when you're finished counting down the 5, it's going to help change the chemical composition of your brain. And you're going to notice that you have the ability to then get out of bed very quickly. I know that there are a lot of questions coming in and we have to be respectful of time. But very quickly, just remember, this is for everybody on the call today, put action to your emotion, okay? Put action to your emotion. Anytime you're emotionally overwhelmed or emotionally overburdened, you want to put some action towards it. And the best thing you can do the 5-point countdown to talk about the things that you are grateful for in that moment. You have a bed to sleep in, okay? And you're beautiful. MashaAllah, look at you. You're beautiful. You have so much to be thankful for. Your eyes, the fact that you have a home, a community, and you need to be thankful about all those friends that you were talking about, right? That are so generous with their
especially the community support, like moral support, a lot.
Excuse me.
I got lots of support from the community.
That's beautiful.
They are my family. They are my relative. All the staff, all the people around. I feel like I'm so strong.
Good.
Without them, I don't know what.
We wish you all the best, in your continued journey. And you're right, it is a journey. This is not, there's no beginning and there's no end to it. But the fact that you are, you have the courage to come here and share your story with all of us and to share ideas of how you can, how you've been able to help yourself. That's definitely beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, baby. Faria has a question as well. Maybe Faria, you could open your mic.
Hi, Hina. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, Faria. Assalamu alaikum.
So we already done the session before, but it's like I'm listening to it for the first time over, mashallah. And it just shows you that you always need to come back to the reminder, because it's just what we were saying then after the session, towards the end of the session, and now the grief just doesn't end. It's ongoing. It can trigger at any point. You can be okay with your grief, but it can be triggered at any point. And I loved what Suraya said specifically. She said, we need to normalize grief. And I think that's a very important message. It should be very normal to be able to grieve. and shockingly enough. So my question, and I just thought of a new question, how do we, I know we think we talked about it all, but I love that I'm back here again with you. How do we approach those who aren't giving us the space to grieve and are becoming a barrier to our healing journey? And I wrote, how can we protect our right to grieve?
That's so true, because you know, in our so many cultures, not just ours but everybody, the idea behind grief is how quickly can you get back to quote unquote normal, and everybody's expectation is that if you're taking too long to grieve, it's actually perceived as a negative behavior, and it's actually perceived as something that, you know, oh, you're not, I mean, unfortunately, you don't have the right amount of faith, or you don't have the right amount of belief, or, you know, there's something wrong with you if you're stuck in your grief, or if you're having a problem. So I'm going to address the question first, and then I'm going to back it up with something. If you've noticed that there's people around you that are negative towards your grief experience, if you notice that, you know, they're putting you down, or they're shaming you, or they're saying things to you that are not letting you honor your own emotions and your own feelings, create some healthy boundaries between yourself and that person. So let's say if it's, you know, even if it's a family member, don't talk about your grief in front of that person. Don't open your emotional self to that person and tell them that, you know, I'm struggling with this, or I'm going through this, because when you make yourself emotionally vulnerable in a situation, it has to be a safe space. We should never, none of us, and this isn't just about grief and loss, it's about any kind of emotional vulnerability. If you're going to make yourself emotionally vulnerable, choose people wisely to make sure that they are going to honor and respect your emotional self and your vulnerability, so that they're not going to make you feel bad about it, but they're going to be there to support you. So if you've got somebody who's, you know, not letting you grieve, or pushing your grief aside, then limit your grief interaction with that person. Now, Soraya mentioned this beautiful thing that they have in their community, where they're able to gather and collect, collectively come and grieve together. And I don't know if that's possible during COVID or not, but just knowing that there is a space for you to go to, that's beautiful. People who are suffering and struggling with longer grief experiences, for them, I always recommend, you know, find a support group. I noticed this in my own family as well. So we're 4 siblings, and each of us had a very different grief process. And one of my siblings, and I really hope that they're not listening, but one of my siblings, she was very quick to get back into her daily routine, whereas another sibling really struggles, and still struggles to the date. And we always said, and I always say to both of them, I say, hey, listen, you know what? Don't be upset with each other because of your grief. You know, it's okay for her to be struggling, and it's okay for you to be getting back to normal. We just need to be respectful. And if somebody doesn't respect you, then guess what? They've lost out on a beautiful opportunity to share in your grief and to share in your healing journey. Because if they're not there for you, and you need somebody to be there, then find the right group of people that will help support you through that process.
Yeah, and what you're saying, it just reminds me that I have to respect my own emotion, whether that's grief or whatever's going on, right? In order to understand that I can't let others take advantage of that either. There needs to be a boundary, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And setting those healthy boundaries, that's what creates healthy grief experiences as well. You know, I mean, as I said, there's so many women or so many people that will talk to you about their grief experience, and they'll say that it hit me again, or it came back to me again. Absolutely. Of course it's going to hit you. Of course it's going to come back to you. I know that, you know, I had clients one time who the husband and the wife, they were grieving the loss of their child. And the husband bounced back rather quickly, and he was able to get back into the routine of his things, and the wife just wasn't able to, and she fell into the severe depression. And one of the things that she felt very angry at her husband for was that you didn't grieve our son. You know, you didn't love our child enough. You were so quick to get back into life. And in the office, when I was talking to both of them, the husband broke down into tears, and he says, what makes you think that I wasn't grieving? The only thing I knew how to do was go back to work. That's the only thing, that's the only action item that I knew that, okay, maybe if I go back to work, it will hurt me a little bit less, or I will stop, the physical pain of it will stop hurting so much after the loss. So you never know, You never know what's going on inside someone's heart. And you said it very beautifully, is that you have to honor your own grief journey. And when you have people around you who've also gone through a loss, being open to understanding their loss. not projecting your loss onto them, but being open to understanding their process of loss and being okay with it, because that's the hard part. We want everybody to abide by our rules. If I've got grieving rules, then everybody who's grieving should be following my rules, but that's not the case. And that's where, compassion. You don't know what's in the heart of another person. So while you are showing compassion for yourself, being open to showing compassion for others as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a very good question for you. And
inspired by you, Soraya.
yeah, I'm so grateful. Sometimes when you have a good stuff, you want to have it again and again until it will sink in you and say, oh, I got it. So definitely we will invite you again. But Iram also, she's going through a lot the last couple of weeks. I think, Iram, do you want to open your mic? She has a question. Iram, go ahead. Mark?
I just I put the request in.
Yeah, Iram. Iram, maybe you could type on chats. He could open your mic.
Iram, I think that if you gave, Mark is giving you permission to unmute your mic, there might be a little box that'll pop up. There you go.
Okay, go ahead, Iram. It's open now.
We can't hear her though. Can you hear her?
Iram, can you talk? Unmute.
Her mic is open, but I think the device she's using, it might be on mute.
Yeah, that happened to me yesterday also. I was in the meeting and I need to unmute.
Oh,
there it is.
Go, Iram. We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Hi everyone.
Awesome.
I'm just going through so many, like I lost my niece. She was very small, but still I cannot control myself.
You want to tell us a little bit about her? It's okay. It sounds like I can see the loss and the pain just even through the screen. I can see how hard this is for you. Was she very young?
Yeah.
It's okay.
She was very young. She was only 8 months, but whenever I talk to my sister, I cannot talk because the way my sister, she's talking, when I heard her voice, I cannot talk to her because the way she explained it to me, like she was very healthy, she's okay, she's just a little bit weak, so they took her to the hospital. Her hospital is not too far from her house, only 10 minutes. So she took her to the hospital and she was laughing, smiling. And then by the time they just reached the hospital, she just died on my sister's hand. And so the process she told me, she holding her body a hospital to her house. So her husband was driving the car hospital to her house. She said they're stopping the car, and my sister, she was holding the baby, and she's keep like talking to the people on the way. Please, can you save my daughter? She was asking to everyone.
Yeah.
So on the road, open the car, and she said she was okay when I took her to the hospital. But now I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. This is like 3 weeks, but I cannot control because I don't have anyone here. Everyone is in
Oh.
everyone is in Pakistan.
Iram, is your sister the one who went through the loss? She's also in Pakistan?
Yeah, she's in Pakistan.
Okay.
So,
So see, I think that's the key. That's the key right there. First of all, it's not been very long. 3 weeks for a loss of an infant like that, and as you mentioned, that your when your sister told you of what happened, that feeling and that emotion, that you don't need to be in the same room as your sister. I can feel your emotion from the screen, and I'm sure everybody in the Zoom room right now can feel your pain and your struggle right now as well. So that's only imaginable that, your sister whom you love so much, whatever she's going through, you're going to feel that pain. And earlier I was talking to Soraya about the importance for community support, and how human beings are not meant to live in isolation. We're meant to be surrounded by loved ones. And one of the most beautiful things about healing from a loss is being surrounded by people who will honor your loss, or who will empathize with your loss. So you said it yourself right now, Iram, that being here by yourself, that's a very painful experience. Can I make a recommendation?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can you try to reach out to people in your community? Just spend time with them. I'm not saying to talk about your niece or to talk about the loss. If you want, you can. If you want to talk about it, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. Just spend time with people so that you're sharing emotional and social space with others. When you're suffering and struggling, being alone is what's going to it's going to exaggerate and increase that experience for you. So if you can take a moment and you can really just, do you have neighbors, or do you have friends, anybody that you can communicate with?
Hina, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because we had a meeting. I think it was the same time of her loss, and
Okay.
she texted me and she said she cannot join.
Oh.
And I'm so glad that you emphasize having to join, that important, that we need each other. So
Yes.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yeah.
No, that's beautiful, Iram. So Soraya's here. Maybe after the call, you can text her. And there's somebody else that just said, you know how to reach me. Reach out to your support system. Reach out to the people who love you and care about you. One of the most beautiful things about Canada that I've always seen and admired about our country is that we are each other's family. A lot of us have left people behind in different parts of the world to come here and establish a life in Canada and call this our home. And now, they may not be born with it. You might not be born into that home or something, but the community that you belong to, these are the people that are chosen to be in your life right now. So don't, utilize those friendships and those relationships, and Soraya and Mothers of Peace and all these beautiful, beautiful people that are around you that want to be there for you. And I can already see in the chat that, you've got support, so much support. So make sure that you're utilizing resources, both, social and emotional support right now. But again, don't be hard on yourself. The loss is very fresh. It's very, very new. Honor those feelings and honor
I
yourself.
I feel because since the pandemic, every day me and my sister talk to video call, and the baby is on her hand. So I always call Aisha, Aisha. So she was just laughing. She saw me. She saw my sister. Always say, "Look, Khala, you wanna go to Canada?" Like this thing. And I saw her janaza on the video call. So this thing is stuck in my mind. So since then, I didn't go to my work. I'm home. I didn't pick up the phone. I just talked to Suraya one day, and I tell her like this is thing. And even though my brother, they all wants to connect me, but I didn't connect. I just talked to my sister who lost her baby.
So I think one of the first steps that needs to happen is to connect with your family that's trying to connect with you, your brothers or anybody else that's trying to talk to you. Start connecting with them. Aram, tell me this. Are you able to get out of bed? Are you eating? Are you sleeping? Are you showering? Are you doing your basics?
For 2 weeks, I didn't cook anything.
That's okay. Two weeks is a very fresh, very raw experience. So that's okay. But how are you now? Tell me about now.
Yeah, for now, a little bit better.
Okay. And that's what I want you to focus on. Okay. I want you to focus on what's getting better day by day. Remember, there will be no end to this. You will always remember your niece, Aisha, you mentioned, right? May Allah grant her, your family's sabr and peace. She died as an innocent. So, inshallah, she's in good hands. She's with Allah. But even for anybody else, right? Like, I mean, when you see your own progress and you see yourself healing and getting a little bit better and moving towards regular functionality, that's the focus that I want you to keep. And slowly, you may not have been able to go back to work, but you can speak to your workplace and you can tell them that I'd like a gradual return to work, and I'd like to get back in, but I've gone through a severe loss. But one of the things I can tell you right now, the minute you start connecting to your community and you come out of this isolation, excuse me, you're going to notice the strength building within you every single day. And that does not take your love for Aisha away. That doesn't take your feelings or your emotions away. You can think about her every single day. You can connect with your sister. You can continue to pray for your niece. You can do good for other people to recognize and honor the legacy or the memory of your niece. So all of that, remember what I said? Do you remember? Put action to emotion. So now reach out to your community and reach out to the beautiful women that are here. And slowly, once you've started reaching out to other people, you're going to notice that your capacity is going to build. Just a quick reminder for, when I was saying that there's an internal and external process to grief, when you are focusing very heavily internally, that's the time you need to start looking externally. You can start looking at the grief of your brothers or the grief of your sister, and really looking at the grief experience of other people and helping take care of their processes. That's important right now, because remember, the grief is not just yours alone, but it belongs to other people. And sometimes when we share our grief with those who are also hurting, that's something that we can find very healing as well. But no, thank you so much for having the courage to share your story today. I know that it's very painful, and definitely this is not an easy topic for anybody to go through, but we all, we value you and we honor that fact and respect the fact that you were able to come and share that with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ira. Murshida has a question as well. Maybe you could open your mic, Murshida.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having a little issue with my video, I think. My question is, sometimes I don't know what to say when people are grieving, right? Especially there's like a lot of losses happening in back home, and then it's not only the loss right now. It's like if you're a Muslim, we bury our bodies right now. They're burning alive. So it's more than they losing the thing, and it's the fact that they're burning, and we don't know. To be honest, I don't know what to say to them. So in this situation, how do you greet them?
Sorry, Murshida, whereabouts are they burning the bodies?
Sri Lanka. It's my back home is Sri Lanka.
Okay. I'm so sorry to hear that. I can understand that, loss is one thing, but another thing is to have to come to terms with different cultures and practices, which might not be aligned with your own belief system. So that can be even more painful. I know you mentioned that the preferred form is burial, right? Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah. So
cremation.
It's like a forced cremation. The government is like they're telling them to give the body, or they're not going to give the body. Things like that. It's just like burning. It's especially there's a 20 days baby was burned. So I don't know, some reason I've been like, even though I have nothing to do with that baby, we don't have any personal contact, but that kind of hurting me inside so badly. I don't know what's the reason. A little baby was
Because you have kids.
because I have kids on my own, right? I don't know, maybe I'm connecting with that. I don't know what's exactly it is. But it just like, I'm like, every day I'm thinking about that situation, and I'm like, the baby got burned without even showing to the parents the baby, saying that the baby have a COVID. And then especially when the parents were checked and they were showing negatives, things like that. But it's just like,
yeah,
I don't know, something is just,
Murshida, I'm so sorry to hear about your experience. This is by far, even listening to you sharing this story or sharing this aspect is, it's so hard for me to hear it. I can't imagine the experience that you must be going through. Definitely, there's one thing that we have to deal with, the loss that we're presented with when that person, that we lose a loved one, but then the violation of our values, or, the feeling disrespected when it comes to last rites, that can be an added layer to the grief that is almost unexplainable. And sometimes you can think of it as this is it's such a traumatizing experience for someone to have to go through. But I believe, when you asked initially that what are you supposed to say in a situation like that, or how do you cope with a situation like that, not saying something is probably worse. So being able to just, be very simple with it. You don't have to give a long-winded message to somebody or a long-winded call, but even the simplicity and the beauty of saying, I'm sorry for your loss, can be such a empowering, connecting way for somebody who's maybe thousands and thousands of miles away in Sri Lanka, to know that somebody is thinking of them and their family and their loved ones all the way here in Canada. So you can even say something as simple as, I'm praying for your child, or I'm praying for your family member. I'm thinking about you, donate some money for that person, and just say that, I made a small donation in that person's name, and make sure that you are doing or saying something rather than not being there at all. Because, this is the one thing that I want all of us here to remember. If you think that your pain or your loss or your suffering is bad or difficult or challenging, imagine what the people are going through who are actually living through it back in Sri Lanka, where you're talking about, or anywhere, right? Imagine the experience of the person who's actually living through it. And that should give you some courage to say, as hard as this may be for me, I need to show up and I need to say something, because sharing somebody's loss, being there during somebody's hardship, is a beautiful thing. And it's actually a blessing for us to be able to be there for somebody when they're going through one of the most difficult times of their lives. I've had a lot of people ask me this question repeatedly whenever I talk about grief, and they'll say, I just don't know what to say. What if I get on the phone and I say something inappropriate or unnecessary? And I said, good, keep it short, keep it succinct, keep it purposeful, and don't carry on. It's okay to say, it's okay to cut the conversation short and say that I just called so that you know that I'm thinking about you and I love you and I'm praying for you. It's okay to cut the conversation short. You don't have to be awkward on the phone. And let's say if you're one of those people who just find it so challenging to talk to somebody who's gone through a loss, then send a message. Send a text message, write it down. You have a lot of control over what you're texting. Write a message out on your, whatever form or whatever format you can, and just make it simple, make it concise, send some love, send some prayers, and an acknowledgement of their loss. And that should be good as well. So Mirza, so extremely sorry to hear about your experience and everything that you're having to hear. I cannot even imagine the challenges that people are going through in the world, COVID related and non-COVID related as well. I pray prayers for everybody out there for their difficulties. And, I really hope that whoever's going through these difficult experiences, that they're able to find some peace and comfort in knowing that they're not alone. And whether we're sitting thousands and thousands of miles away, we are thinking of them, and they are in our thoughts, they're in our hearts, and they will continue to be, because we're able to share this pain with them.
Yeah, thanks. But I don't know, that piece is like, for a while it's been bothering me ever since the COVID happened. Yeah. It's not only the death is happening, this piece is happening. It's just like so many people is going through there. But I don't know, this little baby was kind of impacted me the most, I think. But thanks for this.
Absolutely. No, you're right. We are not nobody's grief is bigger or lesser, but whenever we hear about children, it just, especially if you're a mom, it hits in a special place in your heart, because it aches, right? Like it aches on the inside, because you can understand. Do you have children as well?
Yes, I have 5 children.
Oh, okay. That's one of probably the reasons why you're having a harder time with hearing the story about a younger child. again, not to lessen anybody's loss,
Yes.
but when you're a mom and you hear about somebody else's child, it hits in a very different place in the heart.
That's so true.
Hug your babies tonight, okay? Hug them extra tight and extra special. And
Yeah, they're with my thing, but they keep on coming in, coming inside and going outside. But yeah, they're in a good place.
Good.
They've been taken care. But thank you for the speech. I really enjoyed it. And I mean, it's very inspiring. And then, just like, and it's useful to me. Sometimes, when I go to these kind of places, I'm totally lost. I'm totally, like I'm muted. But this helps though.
Oh, no, thank you so much for sharing. And I really appreciate that. As I mentioned, our hearts and prayers go out to the families in Sri Lanka who are having to go through challenges and losses, not just the loss of their loved one, but also the loss of their dignity and their values and things that are important to them. But you know what? One of the most beautiful things, Murshida, that you did for those people tonight is you brought it to our attention. And now everybody here who's on the call, it doesn't matter where they come from or what their beliefs are, they will hold these people in their hearts and they will pray for them and they will think about them. And you were able to bring that to us. So, I really respect that and I really honor that. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to be able to expand our hearts to people who are thousands and thousands of miles away.
Thank you. Thank you, Murshida. Thank you, Hina. Is there any, we have 5 minutes, any question on the floor? And anybody want to ask question?
Even, a lot of times, sometimes people take time to process. I would really encourage, if you think of a question later on, you can always reach out to me. Soraya can help connect wherever the connections need to be made, or you can reach out to her or your community or the Mothers of Peace and really, just find comfort and solace and answers to your questions, whether they come to you tonight or a week from now or a year from now. Always remember, you're not alone. The process does not isolate you. Everybody is here together. We are all connected through some source, through some way or form to one another, through this beautiful universe. All of us are integrated and connected very, very, very deeply. So reach out if anytime you have a question, reach out to me, reach out to people within your community, and we will all do what we can to help support each other the best that we are able to.
Yeah, one of the things also what we have done was we had planned to do healing circle. We had, I think, registered therapists that it was one of the organization and the community that help us facilitate that. And we had one event, it was physically, and then COVID hits and we turned everything and over virtually.
Yeah.
Like the experience, we didn't know how that will work out, but and within the groups, they really appreciate having that healing circle as well, especially right now more than ever, because the emotion that what we are going through is like you don't know how to put a word. Maybe there is emotion that the grieving or whatever it is that you never dealt with. Now is the time you start reflecting what is happening to you, and it all starts surfacing. And having that healing circle was amazing. But and having, when I hear you and talking, and I say, oh really, oh my God, we really needs this session in Regent Park. And we will have you again, inshallah. And there is one more question, and Bibi has a question as well. Do you want to ask one more question, Bibi?
Unmute me. Okay, yeah. Sister Hina,
yeah,
I have one little question. If someone suffered a painful loss, but she doesn't want to share that pain because she went through a trauma, how can we offer support to help them grieve?
What exactly is the process of this person's grief? Where are they right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if someone suffer a painful loss, but she doesn't want to share with nobody because she went through a depression and trauma, how can we offer support to help them with the grief? Because I really want to come closer to her, to support her.
Okay, actually, I'm really glad, Bibi, that you asked this question, because that shows how beautiful your community is, that you're looking to take care of other people, and you're so, you know, you're excited to take care of people in your community who might be going through a loss. But help me understand one thing. It's an important question that I need you to answer. Is this lady that you're talking about, how is she doing? Is she doing okay? Is she able to take care of herself? Has she, you know, is she meeting milestones and doing things that she should be doing?
She looked depressed. She looked depressed. I just whatever I saw her, just I hug her and I kiss her. I just pat her back. I just caress her, but I don't talk about anything. I just have how you doing, how you doing. Sometimes come and meet me. Sometimes come we talk. Sometimes come we have. I will do henna for you. I will. So I just offer her something, but she's still very quiet, and this bothers me. I want to really. Because she went through a depression and depressed. She looked depressed. She's not look same like before. But I really want to reach out. I really want to support, like give her moral support. I want to start little bit until, because this is my duty. I feel that. I feel bad. This is, as a Muslim, is my duty.
You said it, Bibi. You said it beautifully yourself, that, you know, I want to do little by little, and I want to make sure that she knows that I'm there for her, and I'm available. I want to do more for her. Everything that you've said to me, to be able to gently say that to somebody else, and, you know, message that to your friend or this lady that you're thinking about, just, you know, you can either send it to her as a message, you can say it to her over the phone, or you can even visit her and tell her that you are there for her. Now, remember, I want you to remember something very important, Bibi. Everybody's process of grief is different. And if somebody has gone through a trauma, if they've gone through not just a loss, but there is a trauma related to the loss, the pain of it is going to cut deeper, and it's going to take that person maybe a different amount of time or a different process. And maybe in your process, because I know that you mentioned earlier that, you know, you've been good about bouncing back, and you've been able to go through the loss of 5 people that you loved very much, but you've been able to get resilient and come back up and be in a place of health and happiness. Maybe your process is going to be different than hers. So just honor her process. And if you notice that in her depression, you know, she's not, the quality of her life is deteriorating, and so that's kind of what you want to keep an eye on. If it's taking her a while, but it's still increasing, you know, the quality of her life is getting slowly better, no problem. Let her have her time, let her have her pace. But if you notice that she's here and she's still going down, she used to be able to do some things and now it's just going lower and lower and lower, in that case, then maybe pursue her a little bit more and say, listen, you know, I love you, I care about you. I've noticed that you used to be able to come out for a walk, and I haven't seen you out for a walk lately, but whatever the change is.
That conversation I want to get with her.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that case, if you notice a deterioration in the quality of her life, then you should definitely reach out to her and you should let her know that you're there for her. But remember, take cues from her. Okay. Whatever her process, sometimes maybe she just needs a little bit more time.
But I keep visiting her. I keep looking at her. I keep just hug her and little bit talking, how you doing? But she stopped talking, not talking too much. She's not talking too much. Before we joking a lot. I met her in the park, but now not too much. But it's still.
How long has it been since she?
Maybe around 2 years. The son passed away. The son passed away. But she's one of my henna client. I do henna. She's one of my very good henna. She always come to my home like Eid and Idul Fit and Idul Hada with 8 kit. So I do all the head, but now everything go like stop everything, and she looked very depressed. So I
you know what, Bibi? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What I would recommend, because you're saying that it's been 2 years and you've noticed that she's become quieter and quieter, maybe perhaps when you have a chance to talk to her and it's just her one-on-one with you, to mention this to her and to say, you know, I've noticed a change in your behavior. And you can even say to her that I just recently heard a talk about grief and loss, and I was thinking about you and I was worried about you, and I just wanted to tell you that I've noticed this change in you, and I want want you to know that you don't have to, if you're going through a struggle or if you're going through a challenge, you don't have to be alone through this. Can I help connect you to somebody that would be able to help just talk through this? Even if you're okay, maybe if you talk to somebody, they can help you understand what you're going through and maybe make it a little bit easier for you as well.
Yeah. I just really want to approach to do something. Yeah, I feel so sad. Yeah, I feel so sad because she's so typical girl. She dress up so nicely always. I admire her, and she always henna in the hand. So she's one of my best client. So I feel so sad every time I saw her. I just hug her, and I don't want to leave her. She's crying. She's crying.
Yeah. So being there for her.
And then when she crying, I cry with her.
That's beautiful. Showing her that support and showing her that concern. That's really beautiful. Thank you so much. Continue to support her. You're doing really well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bibi. It's almost 8 o'clock, and I'm gonna call Ines, who is the first of all the workshops that she wants to attend all of the workshops we have in the community and empower them in any way that possible. She could do closing remark, and I would just want to say thank you, Hina. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I want to say thank you, Hina.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Hina, for this workshop.
I'm just going to steal 30 seconds away from you before you do your closing. I just wanted to thank everybody very much, the Regent Park community, Mothers of Peace, and everybody who joined us today to be able to share in this very challenging, very difficult conversation. I know we don't talk about loss and grief as much as we should, but we're all in it together for whatever losses may look like. So thank you again so much for the invitation, for having me share this time, this beautiful evening, and really be able to connect with all of you wonderful people out there. It wouldn't have been possible if all the right connections hadn't been made. So thank you, Faria, for connecting Soraya and I, and for Ines for taking that initiative, and for anybody else who was behind the idea of putting the talk and the workshop together. Really appreciate it. Lots of love to all of you guys. Thank you so much for having me, and have a beautiful evening. I pray for peace in your hearts through whatever losses you may have gone through, and I hope that this talk was hopeful, created some hope in you, was of benefit, and it continues to benefit all of you in your lives.
Thank you. And everyone will get Hina's contact. Mark will email you to give you Hina's contact as well. So Ines, you want to take a moment? Go ahead, Ines.
I think she's on mute again.
Okay. First, I want to say thank you so much, Hina, for doing this workshop. And the reason why I said to Soraya, because it's a Muslim, because this is a multicultural community. And being a multicultural community, it's hard for people to open up. If they see somebody that it's from their own culture, it's easy for them to see and have a better understanding from who it's coming from. So, and that's why I always say to Soraya, it's so important for everybody in the community to feel comfortable when they need to ask questions, or even if they just listen, because it's all those workshops that we do, it's for us to educate ourselves. And like I said, because it's a multicultural community, so we all see things in a different way. And it's hard sometimes even for residents to open up because they're afraid of being judged. That's the first thing that a lot of us do, that we judge, not understanding the other person. So I'm grateful that United Way gave us this fund for us to do all this workshop for the community. And in the new year, we're going to be doing more workshops, and hopefully that everybody is in the Zoom right now, that they have the information. Mark has the information for the next one, and we'll be putting it on WhatsApp and Facebook, Mothers of Peace and everything. So that way we have more residents coming in, Sometimes when I say it's to educate ourselves, see, even with that, sometimes parents interpret that the wrong way. They think I'm saying that that they don't know, like, am I trying to say that you guys need to go to school? No, it's for us to learn and where to go and navigate for information and how to support ourselves. So that's why I'm very grateful for you coming, and thank you so much for all the information. So thank you for everyone for joining in, and hopefully we'll see you in the new year. Happy holidays to everyone, and thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you, Ines. Yeah, we finished on time. We would love to be all night on this Zoom with Hina. But yeah, we will send more workshops on next year as well. We have more coming. And if you want to see anything that's we could post, and we will send you email because you could send us back as well. And thank you, everyone. Mark, Mary behind the tech support as well. Thank you, Ines, Hina. Thank you so much. Thank everyone. This is beautiful, and we will continue.
Thank you.
We will continue to do more of this. So we will empower ourselves. We could help our community as well as we go on. I think the COVID is here to stay for a bit, and I think we are gonna be supporting more communities in with over virtually. I think, and we will have today. We serve a meal with the workshop. Continue to do that next year, inshallah. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Good night.